Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening. My name is Louis Strong and welcome to Headstrong. Now this is a podcast, this series, where I sit down with a number of cricketers and I am talking to them about their lives and their careers, but notably their vulnerabilities, to learn and understand what the word headstrong means to them. This series is coined an innings with, and as I mentioned, I am exclusively talking to cricketers only. In that regard, we are supporting the wonderful charity, the Ruth Strauss Foundation, which is a firm foot in the cricketing world. To donate £10 to the Ruth Strauss Foundation, text 70191, writing RSF10. This series is also sponsored by McGill and Partners and Ascot Group. Thank you for your continued support. Now on this episode of Headstrong, I am joined by one of England's most prominent talents, Ollie Pope. We sat down a couple of months ago to have a chat about his time last year in England bubbles and how his experience in the England setup has been to date. He is still a very young man and has the world at his feet, in particular the England camp. We talked about how Ollie got into cricket and indeed where he has struggled and how he can focus his own mindset to really get the best out of himself. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Ollie, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with me today on Headstrong. It's great to get you on the series.
No worries. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I got to say, I'm talking to you now whilst you're out in Sri Lanka. You're sat there in quarantine, probably sick of the hotel room that you're in. And it's been an interesting year, no doubt, to look back on. But there's a test squad out there in Sri Lanka. It's been announced, and there's, apart from yourself, some key individuals that are missing, including the likes of some staples now in the test team, Ben Stokes, notably, and Jofra. What is it like having some of those key components missing from such a key squad?
It's obviously we're at a disadvantage because not only are they obviously ridiculous cricketers, they're also big influences in the changing room, whether that be Stokesy being a real leader and the way he sort of trains, the way he fields, and just being a leader in the group, or just Joffrey's sort of aura that he's got, or his just the fact that he can bowl about 95 miles an hour is obviously we'll miss that as well. But at the same time, we played without them both at times in the summer, and we were successful in the summer without them too. Obviously, probably would have been more successful with them, I'm sure. But we've got other great leaders within that group. Obviously, Joe Root, the captain, and guys like Joss Butler who step up and sort of, especially if someone like Stokesy isn't there, someone like Joss they'll probably be a bit more on his shoulders in terms of the leadership point of view. But there's still definitely enough leaders here to sort of provide that correct environment that we're looking for.
You're slight disadvantage being injured, so that's obviously a bit more challenging. But the two players that I mentioned previously, they've kind of been left out by the management, so to speak, probably for resting, I would imagine. And it's key, fundamentally, especially after the summer that we've had, to take a break from the game and kind of recharge those batteries, because it's been cricket orientated, living and breathing cricket, and that must be exhausting.
Absolutely.
It must be key for these players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those guys, they went obviously to the IPL. When you're playing all three formats for England, it's obviously going to take its toll on you. And I think the bubbles that we're in at the moment do sort of make everything that a bit more intense. And I think having these little breaks away from the game, obviously it's not ideal. We want them playing the whole time, but having these breaks are really important just to get that hunger back. I've obviously now had a few, unfortunately because of my shoulder, and obviously COVID as well at the start of the year. But I find those, when you do get a sort of month or so off, even when the other guys are playing, you realise how much you enjoy the game, and you can train. Obviously, you're not training physically, but you can train sort of your mind a little bit and learn a few things about yourself and know what's going to make you successful going forward. So you can use these periods of rest to a good advantage.
Yeah, definitely. You take that time to revitalise and particularly with the news of Ben's father. Particularly, our hearts go out to him and his family. But I think that's so important as well to have that time off, to almost have a break from the game. As you say, it is great to work on your mentality for the game, but also it's important to acknowledge that, whilst your life is cricket, a lot of the time it's important to switch off and remember that there are also more important things going on, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, with Stokes' father, that's a massive part of that. It makes you step back and realise, oh, geez, what we're doing at the moment isn't the be all and end all. It's what we love and we do. But yeah, it does make you realise bigger things are going on.
Most definitely. For yourself, as you just said, and as everyone knows, you had your operation on your shoulder about 4 months ago. Am I right?
Yeah, about 4 months now.
And shoulders are notoriously difficult things to rehabilitate. How has that recovery been, and how's that journey been? I imagine you spent a lot of time in the gym working on strength and conditioning and just getting back full movement and strength, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I did it last year as well, at the start of last summer, and had a keyhole surgery. So they reattached what they call the labrum, and that was about 3 months, pretty smooth. Got back playing a couple of weeks earlier than I thought, and then about a year later, obviously, basically did the same injury. So I could have had the same op. I could have left it, which probably wouldn't have been the right idea. But they basically cut a bit of bone, moved it to the front of my shoulder, and have told me now that it'll be stronger than my right. So I've got to trust that firstly. But yeah, the last 4 months have been long. They've been pretty tough at times, to be honest, when it's just you in the gym all for four, especially in COVID. It's obviously a nice way to get out the house for a bit, but there's not other people really at the gym. There's not really much to go and do after. So you sort of spend 3 or 4 hours in every morning just doing pretty tedious work a lot of the time. So it can be quite repetitive. But yeah, that's basically, I've been trying to stay fit, keep the shoulder well, and just trying to build up that strength and range.
Something that I know that I've talked about with like a few other people, not necessarily in the cricket world, but just generally in sport, it's very difficult seeing your teammates and players who are then also your friends who are still training and you're not able to. How do you cope and manage with that? Because that must be incredibly frustrating, despite knowing that you can't actually do anything about the physical playing part of it apart from try and rehabilitate. How difficult is that for you mentally?
Yeah, I found it tougher probably first time round because it was middle of the season, the boys were playing, and I was eager. I wanted to get back into the England side. I wanted to be scoring runs for Surrey. So that was frustrating. And then I guess I was lucky in the time that I did it because the majority, the boys, it was their month off in October. And then I guess it was when we started training probably a month or so ago, and I was just at the Oval and then went up to Loughborough, and all the boys had been training for 3 weeks. You're like, oh, geez, they're all getting better and better in their game, their cricket, their batting, and I'm just stuck here just trying to lift a 4 kg dumbbell or something like that. So it's frustrating, but you've got to realise it's a bit like riding a bike, batting. You're not going to lose it. You just need to sort of work that bit extra harder when you can be back. But it is frustrating seeing them sort of better their game and being sort of working hard while you're just trying to get some strength in your shoulder.
I know that it must be really, really difficult as well because, it's not an us and them situation returning from injury. But, I know when I spoke to Danny Cipriani, for example, he spent a lot of time in the gym on his own, but then he sees, people out on the training pitch and you're kind of slightly isolated. Of course, you've got that support network of the physios and your team behind you trying to get you back from injury, but it's quite isolating as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I found with Surrey was I hadn't obviously being at the club. I'd been playing for England in the summer, so I hadn't played for Surrey at all. And I feel like I'm a real club man, but when you are doing that rehab while everyone's playing and out there, you watching the guys play in your position and do well, which is great to see, but you just sort of detaches you a little bit from the team, which can be quite tough. But it's just everyone deals with it in a different way. Some people, when they're injured, like to completely get away from it, focus on their injury, and that's it. Others like to watch a load of cricket and sort of keep their cricket brain switched on and their team mind switched on as well. So everyone's got their own different ways.
Yeah, it's difficult as well, as you say there, seeing somebody take your place and then also succeeding in that position. Of course, they're probably your mate and you're friends with them and you want to see them succeed, but there's probably at the back of your mind, you're thinking, I need to get back in this team here. I need to just obviously focus on your own game, because you can't change how somebody else plays. But that must be kind of not I don't know. How would you describe that sort of emotion? It's kind of one that you don't really want to have, but it probably does just subconsciously creep in.
Yeah, I think as a kid, it's always probably it's probably one of my biggest downfalls. I'm talking age group cricket, because you used to want to play and you wanted to be player of the season, get the most runs and all this, and get really competitive with your teammates. But I think now, being in a professional sport environment, you realise that these guys are your mates. They're amazing. There's a lot of amazing players out there, and you've got to really enjoy other people's success, because especially in cricket, there's as many bad days as there is good days. So it's frustrating, and those thoughts will creep in, and you might think, "Geez, he might be taking my spot here," but there's nothing you can do about it. There's no point in. You can only control the controllables in my mind. So I used to worry about selection too much and that kind of thing. But now, as long as I know I'm playing well, and training as hard as I can and being a good team bloke, then that's all you can do. Because if you're worrying too much about what your teammates are doing, or your opponents, if you're trying to sort of be better than them, then it's just an extra added pressure. You just gotta try and do whatever you can.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach, because a lot of people will just let that anxiety and worry overtake their thoughts and actually control the controllables. That's a really good saying, actually. I'm interested to talk about the international setup slightly, because I have knowledge from a good source that you're not the greatest of chefs. That you may not be the best cook in the world, and I would like you to confirm or deny this, but I'm pretty sure your nutritionist might be supplying your food when you were back in your rehab stages.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm a useless cook. In the summer, I tried it. Tried some Mindful Chef. So they're sending me, but even that was too hard. And living on your own as well, it made things pretty tough. So the nutritionist sourced it's not fast food. It's basically ready meals, very healthy ready meals, and they're good. And that was going to plan until I ate some chicken. That was accidentally 5 days off.
Oh, no.
So I even managed to ruin that. So I'm best just sorting out delivery and getting that there. It's my safest bet at the minute.
Well, yeah, if they're looking for sponsorship inquiries.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's leave injuries aside now, and it's incredibly exciting because just at the end of 2020, I mean, you must be delighted now to have that England contract, like in the locker, signed on the dotted line, and that guarantees your international cricket, which is fantastic, and it's exciting to see. Hopefully, you out in the middle this year and beyond. Would you say that the Test team's in a bit of a transitional phase now, because there's a few younger players taking central contracts? Where would you stand on that?
I think it very much felt like that just before this time last year when we went to New Zealand. I managed to get myself back in the side. We had Zach Crawley on the trip. We had Dom Bess on the trip. Dom Sibley's first trip as well. And obviously Sam was in the side as well. So a lot of young lads in and around the squad. And then we very much said, there were a lot of chats at the time, and we very much said, this is a young squad. We're pretty new together. We've got this vision of how we want to play. We think we've got the right players for it. And we sort of noted down that because of the nature of our squad, there's going to be tough days. There's going to be days where we don't get things quite right, but we're going to be given the backing that, and to be honest, I've stuck by that word as well, which has been great for this last year and a bit or so. And I think that's probably when it felt like the transitional phase started. And obviously they relied on Sibley, Crawley and myself and Dom Best to go out and put those performances in. Obviously, I think Sam was already on a cost central contract before then, but he's included, and they needed us to go put in those performances to allow us to get those contracts. And to be awarded them is a great sort of pat on the back and great bit of trust for us, because yeah, like you said, we played for a year and a bit in that transitional phase, and we've been rewarded. And obviously we've got a big 12 and a bit months. We've got 4 tests in India after this, 5 at home against India into an Ashes series. So to know that we've got those contracts is nice, to sort of not feel like you've got to look over your shoulder. Obviously, international cricket, you've got to rely on putting performances in each game, but there's a little bit less looking over your shoulder, I guess, the whole time, which is a good thing, which probably works for all camps, really.
Yeah, I think probably before that contract came in, there was probably a little bit more of the over-the-shoulder looking. But now at least you can probably have that guaranteed, as you say, these next 12 months with a lot of cricket and a lot of games to look forward to. And actually you can probably just focus on that without the worry of the contracts and where you are in the team, because at least you know you're going to be in the squad.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just rewind a little bit, though, because, you know, to get to international cricket, you got to start somewhere. And before you arrived, even on the domestic scene, you went to Cranley School. And I remember playing cricket against Cranley. Has cricket always been in the veins for you? What's your earliest cricket memory?
Earliest cricket memory, I remember probably 7 years old, just playing with the old man in the front garden. And yeah, I've always loved it, but I've loved every sport, really. I try to play every sport I can and try to do as well as I can in every sport I play.
Yeah,
there's not a lot else that goes on. Sports being my real strength in my life. There's not many other talents to it.
This series is brought to you by two magnificent sponsors, Ascot Group and McGill and Partners. Ascot Group is a global specialty insurance and reinsurance group with a record of underwriting excellence and superior claims service. Founded in 2001, the company provides a broad range of property and casualty solutions to customers worldwide through its platforms in London, Bermuda, and the United States. Ascot is a long-standing supporter of charities with a link to sport, including ongoing sponsorship of the Great Britain Wheelchair Rugby Club. With a recent increase in mental health awareness, the company is particularly proud to support Headstrong Season 5 and Innings with, which focuses on the psychological well-being challenges that arise from professional sport. McGill and Partners is a boutique insurance broker helping corporate clients find specialist solutions for their most challenging and complex risks. Growing rapidly since its launch in 2019, the company operates in the UK, Europe, and the United States and prides itself on working with some of the biggest companies in the world. And you can find out more on their website, mcgillpartners.com. McGill and Partners understands high performance and the mental health challenges that can be associated with it, regardless of the industry people are working in. The company is fully committed to their employees' well-being and are delighted to be sponsoring the Headstrong podcast series. It is also delighted to support the Ruth Strauss Foundation. Thank you to these two wonderful sponsors. So that's interesting. So did you juggle your cricket and academic life well at school, or were you pretty set on a career in sport, having been in some of that youth domestic setups growing up?
I juggled it pretty well, but not by choice of my own, I don't think. I think my housemaster takes a lot of control, and the head of cricket at Cranley. And I think looking back, they got the perfect situation, really. I'd see a few of the guys doing a bit more training, but they let me out sort of twice a week to go train with Surrey. But at the same time, at that time, I wasn't anything special on the cricket field. I was good, but I wasn't nailed on to be a professional at all. So I think I was always sort of thinking that you never know, I might not. In my mind, I would have gone to uni if I didn't sign a contract after school. I tried to go to uni. So definitely, I didn't brush it aside. But yeah, my housemaster and head of cricket at Cranley definitely kept on top of me to make sure I was getting enough work done as well.
Are you still in touch with him?
Yeah, I am. More so, probably the cricket coach. He was obviously massive for me. He was my coach for however long, probably 5 or 6 years, pretty much. And he's a good lad as well. But he's someone I'd always go back and have a beer or a coffee with at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, there are very, very few people, I would say, who are lucky enough to take that school hobby, essentially, and turn it into an immensely successful career. So playing cricket must be a dream come true. But you just said that you considered university. What was it that you applied for then?
I think sports management. I think I was going to go for. I didn't really think too much about it. It was very much right. Try and get some half decent grades, and if after a year out of school I don't have a contract, then I'll probably look to go to uni. So it wasn't set in stone, but I didn't really. It was sort of just something for me to put down in case it happened.
So were there any other career options then? So coming out of uni, I mean, obviously I know that you were playing cricket immensely. Did you ever have any thoughts of like, oh God, what could I do? Were there any wacky thoughts?
No, to be honest, not really. I think if you call it wacky, going out somewhere like South Africa. I think I remember as a kid and just working on like a safari or something because I just love animals. So I thought that would have always been quite a cool job. But obviously I never really followed that.
Yeah, you might tour South Africa, but you won't be working on a safari.
Yeah, exactly.
You had an immensely impressive start when you arrived on the scene once you were permanently in, and 2018, the season itself, which you must reflect on with immense pride, taking the championship, but you received the Young Player of the Year as well. It's important to say that cricket is, of course, a team sport, but one where individuals have to shine because they obviously it's essential. How do you feel about being rewarded for your own individual efforts on reflection in a team sport? Is it sometimes awkward in terms of being rewarded for that, considering it is a team sport, or do you actually acknowledge that pride and realize you're doing it for the team?
Oh, I think it's a mixture of the two. I wouldn't say awkward at all because it's always your teammates always seem real happy for you when you win anything. But it's cricket, it's obviously it's a team sport, but it's so individually based as well. You rely on people to go out and have a brilliant day and score 100, and then you rely on your teammate doing it the other day and scoring a 50 or something. So you rely on bits of individual brilliance to sort of change a day. And obviously you saw it the world saw it with Ben Stokes on that day in the Ashes and in the World Cup and things like that. So you do rely on people just every now and again having a ridiculous day, but it's great to try and put that in consistently over sort of a period of time is a great feeling. So when we did win that title, I won Player of the Season the year that I did my shoulder, and we came, I think, second or third from bottom. We didn't get near any trophies, and I was just like, I don't really want this trophy. Well, I don't not want it, but I don't feel like what's the point in giving out this trophy? I don't really feel like it's worth it. So when you get it in a situation like that, it's a bit like it feels a bit token. But when it's in a winning side and when you win a trophy that year, it's a nice little extra bonus. But I think the best thing about those are just when you do win a big trophy as a team, there's nothing like it. The feeling after that season, because it's such a tough, long season in the championship, that it was awesome.
Yeah, it's a real grind, isn't it? So, but again, it's nice, and that particular season, it was nice to have been rewarded for the team success and your own personal success. Let's have a look at this kind of one-on-one aspect on a cricket pitch, because as we say, of course, it is a team sport, but it is entirely one-on-one. It's bowler v batsman, and then everyone else supports each other. What techniques do you use yourself to win that mental battle against the bowler?
It's a good one. I'm still struggling to try and find out exactly what works for me. I think different days work differently. So obviously you can cricket, they say sledging. You can have a lot of verbal sort of a lot of communications with the bowler. They might be giving you a bit of stick. You can either go back at them, or I personally, in general, try and stay on my bubble. If they try to stay down, you can just look at them back until, because they have to turn around and walk to the end, just to let them know sort of you're up for it. But I try and stay in my bubble and try not to let anything other than the ball they're bowling, the ball they're releasing, any other emotions get into it. Because if they get into your head, you might think, I need to whack this guy, and then you play a rubbish shot, you're out, they win. And especially as a batter, a lot of the time pretty much all the time, you're going to get out eventually. You're going to lose eventually. You can't really win. But as a bowler, they never really, obviously they do lose, but eventually you're going to get out, and they can give you some stick when you get out. So I always try and not get too involved in a verbal battle. because I don't feel like I need to. If I get a bit of stick, then I almost feel that helps make me switch on that bit extra, because I think, I can't let this guy get me out now. So if anything, I use that as a positive.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting seeing different types of people who thrive off their kind of the verbal battle with the bowler. And the one, my favourite video, and I know that you'll have seen it a number of times, with Jimmy and Mitchell Johnson, and that is just the funniest thing. Even though he wasn't even facing him, and I'm just thinking it's just brilliant.
That's exactly what I mean. Though, even I know Jimmy Johnson wasn't facing there, but you can't win as a batter. Jimmy might have not taken a wicket for ages, then he gets one, and then that's just completely shut the batter up. You can't. So
there's not a lot
being
you can
a batter
say
myself, you can't be like that.
Yeah, definitely. So for a short period of time as well, you were kind of transitioning between the England setup, the England Lions, and Surrey. And that's kind of 3 teams that you're going in and out of, with various different people, various different coaches. And I imagine that would be quite tricky. Was it difficult balancing this kind of being on the fringes of the England team, then going back to domestic cricket, and then being in the Lions? What was that challenge like?
First, I think it made me enjoy playing for Surrey a little bit more, because I felt like there wasn't as much, obviously, international cricket. You're being analysed the whole time. If things go bad, you get a load of stick. And it just almost took the pressure off playing at Surrey a little bit. Obviously, it's very important to the club and for me as well, but took the pressure off a little bit and allowed me just to enjoy my cricket a bit more. I think working with the different is always an interesting one, because everyone's got their different ideas, especially being a young guy, probably in a team with generally a lot older players, or at the time at least, is everyone wants to have their say and their input. So you've got to try and try and work out what's right for you and what's wrong, because they might say, you should do this with your backlift, and then a different coach would say differently. So it's trying to just work out who you trust, who works best for you, and if you want to listen to these specific coaches, and that's up to you. So that's another challenge in itself. But it's great learning as well, that I feel like now I've been around the England side long enough that I can now take what I've learned from international cricket into Surrey cricket as well. So I can now help the younger guys on the side, and even the team as a whole, if there's anything we do differently as an England side, that I think we should bring into the Surrey team as well, then I think that's probably a benefit of the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important as well, and particularly because I wanted to talk to you about the England Lions setup and how important that is probably for younger players looking to break into the main England team. But how does the Lions setup differ from the main team?
I haven't spent a massive amount. I've only done one. I've done 2 tours with the Lions away. And I think what they've done well over the last few years is they've tried to make it as similar to the England side as they can. They've got England coach Andy Flower's gone, ex-England coach. Graham Thorpe was the head coach of my first one, obviously England's batting coach. So those guys try and create an international environment to get used to. So when you do make that step up, you're not just like, you're doing this differently, you're doing this differently. So I think that England Lions is, from what I've heard over the years, they've got a lot better at just making it a bit more specific, not necessarily just boot camps and getting fit, but actually just going out there and performing, which is a good thing to have. And every now and again, when I made my debut, we had Alistair Cook was playing, Chris Wokes was playing. So just getting to rub shoulders as a young lad before you make your England debut is really good, with those sort of the big dogs as well. It gets you used to it all.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's far more inclusive now, which is probably really important to settle some of the youngers' nerves. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because you arrived and you were only 20, and you were probably, I have no doubt, surrounded by some of your cricketing heroes, having watched them growing up. That first time then, I suppose it sounds like you kind of were settled, having played with Wokes and Cookie and the like. But did you find it intimidating on your debut, or did you just want your cricket to do the talking? Because I know it's difficult to battle out your own mindset and think, it's difficult to take yourself out the situation and realise that you're now playing international cricket with some of the people that I've been watching for 10 years.
Yeah, I think the whole week I was at Lord's, again, obviously the home of cricket, packed crowd, against India, number 1 side in the world at the time. So it felt all very surreal. And then Sam Curran was playing as well, which was quite nice actually. Because and I remember there was a good moment at the end. I think it was his third game, and I think we smashed them in the test, which was great. But I was stood at deep square leg, he was stood at fine leg, and we were about to win the game by a good margin, and we just sort of looked around and we said, and we're like, this is pretty cool, isn't it? Jimmy Anderson was bowling, both of our sort of one of our heroes when we were younger. Watched him for as long as I can remember. So it felt very surreal, even just walking into a changing room with those guys, and then post game as well. One of my favourite memories is we all walked back to the hotel, and sort of Cook had a beer in his hand in his whites and next to Root, and then I was just there as well. So it was quite cool, and pretty surreal after the game as well. But yeah, it felt like a bit of a whirlwind that week, and I was very much trying to enjoy everything that came with the debut. But enjoy playing at Lords for the first time for England. But obviously did create a few more nerves as well. I felt like every camera on the training days were on you, and big media sessions and things like that. So it was trying to sort of take that all in, but then as soon as you're on the pitch, that sort of looks after itself. That stuff doesn't matter, which I did feel as well. So that was good.
That's a real pinch yourself moment, that walking back after winning at Lords. That is something that you'll cherish forever, I imagine. I'm curious as well to kind of, I wonder whether it might be slightly after your time now. I must exist, but probably not in the capacity that it did, because team bonding used to be quite a massive thing, maybe more so in the days of maybe Flintoff, where the alcohol might have been more important than the bonding. But what, is there anything specific to the international setup and team bonding now? Because I know that there might be some, more structured approach to it.
To be honest, not really. We've got a few we sit down and we talk through the policies that we all sort of stick by. And often at the start of the tour, if we went to New Zealand, for example, last winter, we had a night where we all had some beers, and because we had quite a while to the first training session, helped the jet lag and that kind of thing. So small things like that are good. But I think in cricket it's slightly different, because you spend so much time together. We're away now for 2.5 months altogether. So there's not a specific thing that is required. Obviously, the older guys look out for the young lads and sort of help them in, and if they need a word or an arm around the shoulder just to chat through something, then they will. But there's not anything specific that we do. I've seen like some football clubs, the young lad has to stand and dance on the table or sing and things like that. But there's nothing like that specifically that we do. But I think it's just spending as much time as we do with each other. It becomes pretty natural.
And it's pretty great to spend some time in the team with some of your great mates, as you say. We're talking about Sam Curran being there, and I've been lucky enough to talk to him as well. And being in these biosecure bubbles as well, it's even more so that you're spending more time with them. So what is it that you do to unwind and maybe detach?
We've played a lot of COD, a lot of Warzone. Especially even in these last 2.5 days, my hours have been seriously high. And in the summer, it's the same. When you're in the bubble, it takes up a lot of time. And I'll probably play after this and this evening as well. But it makes it a bit tougher when you're in a bubble. But normal times we'll go out and get a coffee afternoon. I think it was quite nice last summer because we physically couldn't leave the cricket ground itself. So I brought my coffee machine. Chris Wokes had his. So we set up these sort of coffee afternoons and made some nice coffees for the lads and just chilled and put our feet up and things like that. Because there's limited things you can do. At least here we can use a swimming pool, and I think there's a little beach there. I can see one. Hopefully we can use it. So that would be nice to do those things and get out and about. But coffee afternoons in Warzone, and a lot of the lads play quite a bit of cards as well in the evenings, just to sort of unwind and chill.
I've got to ask then, who's got the worst coffee order in the team?
Oh, it's a tough one because we only really make them, so I can.
Get what you give.
Yeah, exactly. They're good. They're good machines though. Sage Express. They create some good lattes with them. So the lads are happy with that.
Oh, that's great. That sounds really nice, actually, and it sounds like it's a real community within the team. Let's have a look at maybe exploring some like this sort of kind of. It's important to have that skill set in any kind of team, but ultimately it boils down to in Test cricket, it's all about the mentality. And it's often said that the mentality is more important than the skills. What's kind of how do you stay in the game? How do you stay so focused? Because sometimes you might end up having to be out there out there for 2 days batting. How do you stay focused? What's your approach to the focus?
If you do stay out there for 2 days, you've had a great game, and that
catching
sort
in
of thing looks after itself. Yeah, I find from a purely batting specific, while you're out there in the middle, I find switching off and switching on quite a good thing for me to do. So I'll be batting. After I face the ball, I'll step to the side of the wicket, and I'll try and, if there's nothing, if I'm sort of into my innings a little bit and I've worked out what the bowler's trying to do and how he's trying to get me out, I might try and just sort of switch off and look at something outside the ground, if there's a mountain there or if there's a big high-rise building, or if not, pick something in the crowd to look at and just try and switch off for that, even if it's 10 seconds, just to allow my mind just to sort of take a relax, and just so I'm not getting too many preconceived ideas into my head, like what's the bowler going to bowl next ball, what's he trying to do. So it's trying to find the right balance between the two. But I find sort of switching off, switching on, and then so once I've switched off, I step back onto the crease. I scratch my guard, and I'm like, right, I'm back in. And I've got to focus for this 10 seconds, then I get 30 seconds off in a way. And I think that's quite helpful with trying to sort of allow me to switch off the pitch as well, because especially when things don't go your way in cricket and you're away for 2.5 months, there can be some pretty tough times out there. So it's trying to find a way just to stop thinking about it. So it's almost going, you can think about batting for 2 days and then you might get out second ball. So it's trying to think that, right, I'm thinking about this now. That's absolutely fine. It's not going to affect what I do in that split sort of 30 seconds. So all that matters is when I'm out at the crease in that 20 seconds, I can think about whatever now, but that's going to be irrelevant to the outcome. And as long as I'm purely focused in that 20 seconds, then I found that quite a useful method to sort of go by as well, because just to sort of help my mind ease a little bit.
It sounds like a really healthy approach. You must also have extreme mental resilience, maybe madness, to play and field at short leg. I mean, I couldn't think of possibly anything worse than putting myself down there. But you've now found yourself at the top of the game playing there. How on earth did you find yourself there? Like, can you remember your first time playing at short leg?
Yeah, not really. You get stuck in as a youngster as long as you move well and you're a good fielder. So I did it a little bit for Surrey, managed to get out for Surrey, get into the gully. And then on my debut, did it, got a catch off Kohli there, then didn't play for a few years, hoped I'd sort of go under the radar, but now straight back in. And as soon as you get, it's a confidence thing in there. I mean, I've been fortunate enough so far that I haven't taken any big hits yet. But as soon as I do, that might, even knowing that you're standing a metre away from a guy who's trying to whack the ball as hard as he can, it's just a bit like, is this worth it, lads? But it's just, yeah, I see myself fairly agile and a good fielder, so I think I've just been stuck with it for a little bit. And while I'm in there, I'll try to do everything I can to take those catches, but can't say I enjoy it that much in there.
I've got to say, you must have get an extra adrenaline boost under there, though, under the helmet. Crikey.
Yeah, you've got it. And if you're not sort of fired up for it, it's just not a nice place to be. So
yeah, you've got to be, as I say, you've got to have a good mindset, definitely, to be under there. Because if you have had a bad day on the pitch and then you've got to go out there and sit under the helmet, that's probably not the place to be. But
no, exactly.
As we were saying, everyone has bad days on the cricket field, and often probably more so bad days than good days, but everyone remembers the good days rather than the bad days. Who in that England dressing room do you kind of look up to the most and maybe seek advice and help from when things are getting tough?
I think all the other batters. I think we batting in Test cricket. I mean, bowling as well, of course, is probably more so on the body though, and then batting on the mind. Just when things don't go your way. Been through tough phases, whether you're Joe Root, you're Ben Stokes, or you're a young lad just coming in. Everyone's gonna go through tough phases, and bad form and go through good form as well. So I like speaking to Joe Root about it, Joss Butler about it. I think I've spoken to Joss quite recently. He's got a great mindset with things. I think, like I spoke about, you can have all these negative thoughts, but it's about, and he goes by that a little bit as well. So the coaches have been through it. Graham Thorpe, he's good to chat to. So it's just anyone really is great to speak to, because everyone's had those highs and those lows, and you can really empathise when someone is going through a low, but really enjoy their success as well. So Joe Root, I think, is great to chat to. He's one of the best in the world. So he's and he just loves batting as well. So he's probably the go-to, him and Joss Butler.
Yeah, he's certainly got that paternal figure and instinct in the dressing room, from what I can see, which is great.
Exactly.
Just before, as we unwind, it's great to have that kind of support, and we're incredibly proud on Headstrong this season, for the cricket season, to be supporting the Ruth Strauss Foundation, and I know how important that is in the England dressing room and further beyond. So that's really, really great, and I know that that the team do rally around Straussy and the charity, which is really, really positive and immensely challenging as well, particularly as we go into another lockdown here in the UK. So anyone who's listening, please try and reach out in any way possible to help support the foundation, whether you are a cricket fan or not, because of course the foundation is not, stuck and firmly in cricket. It's a foundation that supports everyone from all walks of life, and that's really important. So I know that you'll completely agree with the work that they do as well. How exciting is it going? Have you played in any of the Red Hat days, the Red Days?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, played. We played against West Indies. I think one of the days was. So obviously, all go out in the red caps. Watch a few pretty emotional videos actually as well. And like we said with Stokes' dad, it makes you realise that just before you're about to go play cricket, you're like, oh, geez, that's tough to see. But obviously, it's an amazing foundation. It's great to support it, but it makes you realise that, geez, it's not all about cricket here as well. And I think the guys, obviously the older guys who would have played with Strauss as well, probably get a little bit more sort of touched by it as well, having known her. But yeah, I played in the one against West Indies. Unfortunately, there was obviously no crowd in, so we couldn't really see all the red around the ground. But no, it was a good day to be involved in.
I have to say that, it must still be incredibly powerful without a crowd, and let's hope that this might be the year where we can get some crowds back into some grounds. That'd be really exciting, because I know I certainly miss some live cricket. I know Sky delivers pretty well, but could do with some live action. I asked this question to everybody, Ollie, and it's the final question of the podcast. What does Headstrong mean to you?
I think it's just resilience, and I think it's a way of just trying to deal. I'd use it more dealing with the bad times, especially with cricket, and trying to find the strength within yourself when things don't go your way, to stick at it. And I think cricket's obviously you use that in life, and I think cricket's a real good way of sort of training that and learning that things aren't going to go your way the whole time. As a batter, you say things, you have as many bad days as you do good days. It's dealing with those bad days and learning from them, and trying to take whether you take that into life or just your next innings, and sort of coming back from that. And I think that's probably my best example of that.
I think that's very insightful. Ollie, thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the best on your recovery. And fingers crossed, we will see some big hits out in India, and then back on home soil, and then onwards for the year, basically. And here's to all the England success and you a speedy recovery. So thank you so much.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you.
We are supporting the Ruth Strauss Foundation with Headstrong and Innings with. Sir Andrew Strauss lost his wife to non-smoking lung cancer in 2018. Just before her death, Ruth and Andrew discussed the idea of setting up a foundation to help other families who would be facing a similar ordeal. The Ruth Strauss Foundation wants to ensure that all families with dependent children facing the death of a parent are offered emotional support and guidance to prepare for the future, allowing them to make the most of their time together. In tandem, they are driving the need for more research and collaboration in the fight against non-smoking lung cancers, which are on the rise and to which Ruth ultimately lost her life. You can support their cause by making a donation today. To donate, text RSF10 to 70191 to donate £10. Or you can donate online at virginmoneygiving.com/fund/headstrong/RSF. Thank you for all your support of Headstrong and the Ruth Strauss Foundation. Thank you very, very much to Ollie for joining me on this episode of Headstrong. That is it for this episode, in fact. If you did enjoy it, feel free to tell your friends or your family, or indeed send it off to all of your cricket friends as well. If you have also enjoyed this episode, please do hit subscribe, leave a rating, and try and leave a review as well. Every little helps, and I really appreciate every single person that listens to this podcast. Finally, join me next week for my final episode of Headstrong with the England legend Sir Andrew Strauss, the absolute servant to English cricket. See you next week.